Good morning, friends. Welcome to another Field Trip Friday. My name is Steve.
And I am Tanika. Good morning. Today we're going to be exploring the Brown Water Treatment Plant. And we have Paul and Aaron here with us today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We also have three really exciting schools celebrating with us today as well. So we have Southwest Elementary School with Miss Williams.
There's Southwest. Hopefully you can see your school there.
All right. We also have Spring Valley Elementary School with Miss Williams.
Exactly. Another Miss Williams. There's Spring Valley. Hopefully you can see Spring Valley. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Spring Valley, for bringing with us Miss Williams and Miss Williams. And we also have Moorhead Montessori School with us this morning with Miss Harden. Good morning.
There's Moorhead. Good morning, friends.
So we are excited that today, on this Friday, you all chose to be our DPS classrooms. We're excited to have three today. So, Steve?
Yeah, I just want to remind friends that are with us here in Zoom that you can chat questions while we're watching the video. We'll maybe have a chance to answer them here, but if not, maybe we'll get a chance to answer them in our spoken Q&A after the video. So keep your eyes open, your minds curious, and chat us some questions, and we'll talk about them after the video. With that, I'm going to get us going. This was so fun. We had a really wonderful time. It was kind of a beautiful, still a little chilly, but beautiful spring day. And I hope you enjoy seeing it. Here we go. Welcome to another Field Trip Friday. My name's Steve.
And I'm Tanika.
Where are we going today, Tanika?
Today we're going to be at the Brown Water Treatment Plant in Durham, North Carolina.
What do they do here?
So here they take water from Lake Mickey and Little River and turn it into the clean water that we drink every day.
That sounds so awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's check it out.
All right, let's go.
Do you mind telling us a little, well, first of all, who are you? What do you do here?
My name is Paul. I've been doing this with the city of Durham for almost 16 years.
Nice.
I've worked at both water plants, the Williams plant and this one. I've been here over here for the last 7 years.
Cool.
7, 8 years somewhere. So what we do here is we take our sample water. So we've got the raw water that comes into the plant, looks like that. Okay? And what we do is we treat the water with chemicals and filters and everything to make the water look like that. So there's nothing wrong with the water. Water's perfectly good. We run all sorts of awards. We're constantly running tests on it. Whole process, depending on how much we're treating, can take up to a day for the water to get from one end of the plant to the other.
I was curious about that. You may have mentioned it before, but I was wondering how long that whole process takes.
The easy math would say for treating 24 million gallons of water, it takes 24 hours.
24 hours.
To go through the whole plant.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
We use roughly 6 different chemicals here. We treat for disinfectant, we treat for corrosion control, we treat for iron and manganese to get rid of that. We also treat for taste and odor and algae, depending on the time of the year.
Yeah.
So here, all of our chemicals are used on a dosage basis or pH driven. So we're looking to make sure there's a certain pH level to make sure all of our chemicals work right. And the dosage is how much we want to actually use of a particular chemical to suffice our needs to get what we want out of it, or to achieve. Such as a ferric. Remember we talked about the ferric, which is iron. We run at a certain pH, trying to get all those particles to bond together to sync. So we know that on our SCADA system, when we talked about our computer system, we can actually adjust that just by typing in the number.
Oh, that's cool.
We get the water from two different spots, like Mickey and Little River.
Yeah.
That little landing on the far side, that's where the water from Little River comes in. Okay, you can see like a little platform.
Ah, yeah.
That pipe goes out about 50 feet and goes in. When that ferric gets into the water, what it's going to do is it's going to start binding with all those little particles in the water to make them heavier.
Right.
Okay, so we control the pH, we add the ferric, and if you hear the noise going through here, this is a static mixer. As the water's going through, it's getting turbulent, it's mixing it all up.
That's cool. And so it's a chelation?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is creating a flock. And the next section here are flock basins. And what you'll see is you see how rapid the water comes in here. Okay, and you can just see the little thing starting to form.
Yep.
All right, and as we go this way,
It's got this nice rusty color too.
when you go this way, what you'll actually see is those flock getting bigger and bigger. They start to settle out.
Like right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
The water comes out of here, now it's going
Like
this
right
way.
in this area.
Yeah, and you can see them all swirling around.
Yeah.
So the water is actually going all the way down there. If you think of the water that you saw when it first came into the plant and was all turbulent and like, you can actually start seeing it start settling out.
Yeah.
You can see the change in color.
So as you walk down, just watch the water. See it starting to change, it gets clearer and clearer. And we're actually, right now, because we had to go up in the treatment rate, we're a little bit cloudier than normal. But we're going to fix that here. About 75 feet out, once after we get to a rake change, we can actually start seeing those rakes. Like I said, right now it's just a little bit cloudy yet, and with the wind it's hard to see it sometimes.
Yeah.
So it goes from there.
And you just leave it in contact with the chlorine for a while, and
Yep.
then
So the chlorine's going to be there for now. So it goes from there to the clear wells. On the backside of the clear wells, it splits and it feeds each one of them. Before we had the upgrade, we didn't have that. So all of our disinfectant stuff was being done in the first clear well and transferred to the second.
Okay.
So we only had 5 million gallons of surplus water that was ready to go. Now we have 10 million. Okay? So you see the buildings down here with the blue pipes coming out of them? That's the finished water pumps that's taking the water from those clear wells and sending it to the city.
Cool. Yeah, so we got to see your operations center, and you mentioned that this is a brand new facility, so you guys are kind of working with like the cutting edge of your type of water management technology. Is that?
Yep. It's a big difference, like we talked earlier, when we used to have to do a change of rate from say like 15 million to 25 million. We used to have to go out and actually physically change all the chemical feed pumps, physically change the flow rates coming into the plant and stuff like that. It had to be physically done. Now it's just a matter of through SCADA. Is actually everything is just typed in and it automatically adjusts itself.
Yeah.
One of the things we discussed is while the newer side was being built, the older side was still running. Can you talk about that?
Well, this whole addition was done, started in October 2016. They kept the main plant running while they were doing construction, and as each step came into play, we actually integrated the new into the old, which is quite a challenge sometimes, but we actually did it. In the middle of all that, we actually won the award for best tasting water for the city of Durham, which is pretty incredible. A lot of what went on during the construction is the crew guys that we have working here work extremely well together. And actually, when we've been given certain tasks, we're like, wow, can we really make this happen? We did. And that's the guys, the operators, working along with Tom and Brian, the supervisor and superintendent, pulled it all together and actually got what we got. And knock on wood, never had an issue through the whole process.
Oh, that's cool.
We thought if there's a process where we say there was no boiled notices, there was no nothing like that, if everything went out the door to the citizens of Durham, it's perfect water.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. Nice work. And that's a really interesting part too, is that along our journey, it seemed like you have so many tools at your disposal to kind of really keep track of what's going on, to be able to keep up with things like that seasonality of algae growth.
We run 5 different shifts, so this plant is constantly monitored. We constantly have staff on site. Every minute of the day, there's a certified operator here.
Wow.
So we can treat up to 42 million gallons of water, and we can send a lot more than that to the city.
Nice.
Can you quickly tell us how you got into this profession? What actually is your interest in water management? How did you come to love this?
Well, I've always played with water. I swim team, the whole shot. When I was getting ready to go to college, I was either going to do marine biology or oceanographic studies. I wanted to be on Jacques Cousteau, the water guy boat, but that didn't happen. So I said, well, what else can you do? And you look at this, and you're saying, how do we make quality water for people and make sure it's safe? So I got into it. I've been doing it for about 20 years. Kind of a little late start, but about 20 years. And it's been fun. It's been fascinating to me because I've got grade 4 wastewater license. I can either work on the wastewater side or I can work on this side.
Cool.
So I can go both ways because water itself is fascinating. Because we need the clean water to drink. We need to keep the legs and everything good. So how do we balance that whole thing out?
Yeah.
So as an operator, to work here, you need to be certified. So you can actually, we send all of our guys to school. Well, we used to send them physically to school, now they're doing it virtually. But the state offers a school, which they go for a whole week, and then they have to sit for an exam. And as they get more experience, they can move up the line. So the very bottom one is C surface, and then the B, and then the A. So most of our guys here strive to be at the A level. Again, I can't say enough good things about people that we have here. So.
It's great to be part of an excellent team.
Yep. It's an interesting, the question you asked, that was on my side. We have a gentleman here who actually has a master's degree in chemical engineering, so he ended up getting a job here and has fallen in love with it.
Yeah, cool.
And which is kind of cool for us because he does all of our chemical math stuff.
Yeah, like the quantitative analysis.
Yeah, so we have an interesting cross-cut of people, how they came into the water profession. Some of us stumbled into it. One thing that you normally see is once people get into it, they don't leave.
Nice.
It's a job that we won't get rich at it, but the rewards are there. We always have a good job. Somebody's either turning the faucet on or flushing their toilets.
Yeah.
Unless you majorly mess up, you have a job for life.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's such an essential part. I come from New Mexico, and a common phrase there is that water is life, you know, and it truly is. It's such an important part of our world.
I think somebody once told me you can go 4 days without water before things start to happen. You can go a long time without gasoline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really, truly important stuff. So thank you, Paul, for sharing your story.
Well, thank you guys
and,
for coming here and being our first official tour.
Yeah,
Thank
so cool.
you.
Thank you again. So that was such an awesome journey.
Yeah, definitely learned a lot today.
Yeah, that was so fun. I'm super excited. Stay tuned for the live Q&A where we're going to get to actually ask some questions of water management folks and learn a little bit more about how this all works and what it takes to be on the water management team. See you there, friends. Stay tuned.
Bye.
That was so fun.
Yeah, that was like a really interesting kickoff for me. That was my very first field trip, and I was really excited to be invited on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, and all of our fun students in the chat, you guys did a great job of asking amazing questions. So, we're going to go through and we're going to read some of your questions and see if we can get some answers. I mean, your questions were really thoughtful, and we can tell that you were really paying attention to the video. And so, we're going to kind of direct these questions to Paul and Aaron and see if you all can answer some of the questions that the students are asking. So one person said, how many people work there?
We have a dishwater plant somewhere around, we have 12 operators, and then we have a supervisor, superintendent. We have a lady in the office, and then we have 3 mechanics that we have on site.
And so some students also had a question about what are the chemicals that are actually put into the water?
Well, the first part of it, we use sodium hydroxide, and which is like a caustic soda, which controls the pH mainly and the alkalinity. And then we use ferric, which is actually iron, and that's what we use for bonding all those little particles together. And then we use what you guys would commonly known as bleach for a disinfectant, along with ammonia, and that actually does for the disinfection part. And then we use another chemical called phosphate for your corrosion control, and we also use fluoride in the water for your teeth. And then during the summertime, we'll use a chemical called sodium permanganate, and also a copper sulfate for doing taste and odor control.
Yeah, that is so wild. I think I remember, we didn't end up including this part of our conversation with you, Paul, but I remember you talking about how on the drinking water side, it's immensely chemical. Like there's a lot of chemistry involved in kind of the processes and especially like the plant management and the way you operate things at the Brown water treatment plant. But on the wastewater side, it's really cool because it's more of like almost a biological process. You're really trying to optimize the growth of bacteria that are helping to break down materials in the water. And I was wondering if you'd like to speak a little bit to that comparison and contrast, Aaron, a little bit. I know you've worked on, or I know both of you work closely with both sides of that, but I'd love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on the kind of differences between the approaches to wastewater and tap water.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the wastewater part. Yeah, it's really, they rely on microscopic bacteria, little tiny bugs, to eat the gross stuff basically that we put down the drain or down the toilet, because that's pretty much, that water is pretty gross. And thankfully these bacteria love to eat up that gross stuff that we put down the toilet. So we really like those bugs. And mostly it is kind of a natural process to using a filter that resembles what you would find in the earth. If you were to go down into, through the layers of the earth, it'd be sand, gravel, coal, charcoal. Those are the same elements to a filter that they would use in wastewater. And they actually use a filter similar to that in drinking water as well, but of course with the addition of some chemicals too, to make sure it's extra perfect, because we're putting it in our bodies on the drinking water side. So we need some of those disinfecting chemicals to make it perfect for us to drink.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Miss Williams's and or Miss Harden, would you like to ask any of your students questions? There were so many good ones. Like Tanika said, y'all were doing a really great job of asking really thoughtful questions. What are some other ones we've got?
Yes, Steve, I have a question from a student. How does the water from Lake Mickey get to the reservoir?
Great question.
Coming from Lake Mickey, we have 2 big water pumps out there, and we can also do what we call a hydro system. So they actually have pumps that pump the water from Lake Mickey through a big pipe all the way into our reservoir here. And it's the same thing at Little River. We actually have 2 big electric pumps that will actually push the water in here. We can actually, one will do about 30 million gallons and the other one does about 42 million gallons a day to push the water into the reservoir. The reservoir itself holds 90 million gallons of water, which is about an average of 3 days worth of water if we ever needed it that way, but we're constantly refilling and keeping it full.
That is so much water. Like just these numbers are just kind of like staggering. Like one of the coolest things about those the clear wells was just the size of that space. And it's hard. That was like a drone shot from like above. It was like, they're enormous things, like 5 million gallons. And I think one of the students was just like, do they really hold 5 million gallons? It's like, yeah. And there's 2 of them. And that's only 10 million gallons. That reservoir holds 90 million gallons. And y'all are processing, on any given day, around 24 to 40 million gallons of water. These numbers are just so huge. I'm just so excited about them. Are there, sorry, I got a little excited there. Are there other questions, teachers, that I know there were. Would you like to call out another question?
I had one. When will the water be clean and done for a person to drink? Like, how quickly is that process to get from the cleaning phase to the person actually drinking?
Well, it depends on how much water we're actually treating per day, and that goes on a demand basis. During the winter time, there isn't as much demand, so it takes a little bit longer for the water to go through the plant. An average thing, like we said in the video, let's say if we're treating 24 million gallons of water in one day, that would take roughly 24 hours for that water to go completely through the system.
I have a question from my perspective as a teacher. The logistics, when it comes to a county setting up a reservoir, what do they think about the location? How do they pick a location to set up a reservoir?
I think I'll let Aaron try that one.
Great question, Ms. Williams.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with topography, and that it's a little bit higher up in a little bit of the northern part of our service area, so that it's easier for that water to travel to us, because we rely a little bit on gravity to bring us that water. Also, the 2 sources are pretty pristine, so we've done a good job at conserving the area around them, so they have a lot of vegetative buffers, meaning that they have a lot of plants that sort of help keep that water clean, they help filter the water. So, and there's no one really using that water ahead of us, so there's not another city or town that's putting their used water into the system. So it's a pretty good source for us to use for our drinking water anyway. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like Durham's kind of fortunate like that.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And David and I were kind of joking when we were driving to the plant. We're like, we go up and down this road all the time and never even really noticed that this sat on the back of this road that we travel on a constant basis. And, they're like, well, we kind of really want you to know,
We make good neighbors.
Yeah. That was great. Other questions? Yeah, there's so many good ones. It's so good.
Yeah. I had a question from a student about why do they call water treatment, why do they call it a plant?
Great question.
That's a challenging one. Well, we could almost say we're almost a chemical plant, because we use all these chemicals to get rid of all the bad things in the water. So that's probably why we call it a plant. I never even thought of that question. You got me stumped on that one.
That's good. Yeah.
Aaron, you got thoughts on that one?
I was going to say, because we're sort of a producer of something, we end up producing something. So it's like you make a product, which is a drinking water It's basically drinking water. So that would be our product. And then when we're plant producing it, I guess. And it's a very long process. Plants involve a lot of steps and multi-stepped process. So maybe that's why they do it.
It is kind of an interesting word, the way that we use plant to refer to, like you guys just described, a place or a facility that makes something. But we also talk about like biological plants that, you know, like are a whole branch of life, you know, like a whole like kind of area of organisms, you know, that live in our everyday life. And I really like that kind of connection you just made, Aaron, with like production. You know, plants are producers, and so are these facilities. That's really cool. Great question.
I also read another really good question from one of the students, and they asked, how does the water get from you all into the actual pipes? And I thought that was a really good question.
Okay, remember those big clear wells that we had there? The ones that we keep talking about that have 5 million gallons? Well, there's a little building right in front of it that house, we call them finished water pumps. And they take the water from the tanks and they actually push it through those blue pipes, which will go through the system that we normally, it's buried underground, that go into your house and your buildings.
That's cool. Yeah, and so there's a bunch of utilities that go underground, and that's why, as a kid, I remember, I still see them now, all these, you know, call before you dig, is because there's pipes and electrical lines and all sorts of stuff that's running underground, and there are these really important networks. And I think I saw another question asking about leaks, and I'm sure that that's a big part of your work as a water management department, is you have this network of pipes, and you want that to flow effectively and efficiently. Am I right on that assumption?
Yep. I think when I started back in 2006 here, I think they told me there was roughly 1,200 miles of pipes laid underground throughout the city. That's a lot of piping. And some of it's old pipes, and every once in a while you hear where there's a water main break or something like that. And that's part of it is just, you know, older piping that's going, but then it all gets replaced. And we're constantly watering or measuring system pressure here at the plant. So we know if there's a major drop somewhere that we might have a leak, and then we have people start looking for it. So again, it's one of those things that our SCADA system and everything just pretty much tells us, hey, if we've got a problem out there in the system somewhere.
That's cool. I think we're running.
Yeah, we have the entire.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, no, please finish. I was just going to start winding us down, but please feel free to answer.
Okay, I was going to add to. I know that we talked about the number of people at Brown, but there are over. I think there's almost 350 or just over 350 employees in water management altogether as a department. So there's a lot of people, just like you were talking about, monitoring our leaks and the pipes and the system. So there's a lot of elements that go into that. There's engineers and there's maintenance folks and chemical folks, laboratory folks. Like there's just a ton of us because it's a really important job. So there's a lot of things going on with those thousands of pipes and knowing how that's working and making sure that it's working well.
So cool. Yeah, that has been one of my favorite parts of these trips that focus on kind of city infrastructure and the way we do this scale of community work on these projects is just so immense. And I think because we have them every day, sometimes we don't always like recognize the magic and the passion and labor and care and concern for each other that goes into these jobs. And it has been such a pleasure to meet folks like you and talk to you and share your stories with everyone, because it's just so incredible. It is just like mind-blowingly incredible that we have a network of thousands of miles of pipe that direct clean, amazing water just to our home when we like flip a switch. That's incredible. And yeah, and I really like that you highlighted how much work that takes. It's not easy. It takes really hard, dedicated work.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we like to say is like, if you're not thinking about us, we're doing a good job. So, you know, if something happens, then that's when you're thinking about us. But you go about your life pretty much every day and not even think about all the stuff happening underground, all the things happening at the plant. And usually that's a good thing because that means it's working really well. Yeah.
Yeah, we always.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Paul. From a public person, Durham has some great water. Let me just say that before he makes his. They do have some great with you guys.
Thank you very much. We always say here at the water plant, a boring day in the water plant's a good day because everything's right.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're about at time. So I want to give Tanika a chance to give some special thanks. We are so thankful. So I'll let Tanika go ahead.
So we just want to give a special thanks to Aaron and Paul and everybody at the Brown Water Treatment Plant for having us and sharing all this wonderful information with us. We'd like to thank Willow for having us and Dr. Linda as well, and everybody in Durham Public Schools. And we also want to give a special shout out to Southwest, Spring Valley, and Moorhead for being with us again today. You guys are also awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to say thank you guys because you're the first virtual tour we've ever done here. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
We sure did. Yeah, it was incredible. I want to give you guys a sneak peek at next week. So we will be catching up critically endangered red wolves here at the museum. I have been privileged to be a part of the team that helps do that work. So you'll get to see inside of the wolf habitat while we move these wolves from their habitat into crates to go to the veterinary exam room. And we'll get to learn about all the cool work that is done with this critically endangered species. And by critically, I mean like super critically endangered. There's less than 300 of these animals in the world, period, and less than 30 of them in the wild. And the only wild red wolves in the world live right here in North Carolina. So join us next week to learn more about endangered red wolves and what you can do to help. And we'll see you here at the museum, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Stay curious, friends.